So here on the Get You Home show, it's just gone 5 o'clock here in the UK. But I know for my guests who are joining me now, it's a slightly different time. Hello to the band members from Altira. We've got Dawn, Michelle, Gina, and Ash. Hello, great to have you with us.
Hi.
Hi, what's up?
Hello.
Excellent. It's great to have you. Great to have you on the show. You spoke with Stephen D last week, I know, on the Rock Show, and we heard some of your music, and that was awesome. By the way, I heard the title track of your EP, "Death of Fear." It's got a great sound, but I know that a big part of it is it's a desire and a heart for fighting fear that has been around a lot longer than the band has existed, which really does come into it. So, looking forward to a bit of a deeper interview and conversation with each one of you to chat about sort of your stories and what led to starting Altira ultimately. So, just to start, I know you, Dawn, have been part of Fireflight for about 20 years. Is that correct?
Yes, we actually got started in the year 2000.
Okay. Yeah, that's, 26 years old Fireflight is then.
Yeah, that's how old we are since we were born. Um, but yeah, we it took us quite a while to get able to do it. For like 5 years, we did it just practicing and practicing and going and doing shows as far as we could and still get back home to go to college or to go to work on Monday, that kind of stuff. We did that for a long time. And then God thankfully opened the doors and we got to get signed and then started doing it full time, and we did it full time until things started kind of tapering down a little bit. And then 2020 happened and we thought, well, we've had a good run. So we've been retired from touring since 2020, even though we released singles through 2021.
Okay, awesome. I must say, as I said to you earlier, just off air, I've enjoyed Fireflight for a long time. So it is nice to have a sort of some of the flavor of that band in Altira as the new band, which is great. And we played "What Have I Become" just a moment ago. Really, really great song and a really wonderful band. So yeah, that is where your music sort of started, I guess. Interesting to note that it didn't like take off immediately. A lot of people get into music, and I suspect they hope it will just bang. They'll have that moment where it just explodes. That going
Yeah.
viral, I suppose, is the word we'd look for. But
Hmm.
it takes a bit of hard work, doesn't it?
It does. We when we were getting signed, we had been working for so long, and there were other bands that were getting signed that had only been together not very long, and we were like, dang. But they say easy come, easy go, and we did see that a lot because we put our blood, sweat, and tears in it for years, made sacrifices, and that kind of strengthened us because being a touring band is not easy, and it takes a lot of sacrifice, and when you have to fight hard to get it, then I think that helps you to persevere and to hold on to it.
Mm, definitely. I guess it's like it's a slower start, but it has greater stamina, perhaps.
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. That's what the tortoise said, right?
Exactly, exactly. Slow and steady. And obviously, as I say, Firefly I've enjoyed for a long time, and now you've started the band Altira. So we've got Gina, Ash as well. You all have all started this together. I've seen some of the music videos that you've been putting together, little clips of it, and for the first time on Monday, heard one of the songs in full, which I really really enjoyed. We'll play another one of those a little bit later. But so how did you three meet? So Gina, like how did you start out in music? So we've heard about Dawn, obviously with Fireflight back from 2000. So a bit of a longer history. I suspect yours might be a little bit shorter. But where did you first get into music?
Yes, well, I was born in 2000, but around 2003, I started developing rhythm just like as a child. My parents kind of set me up and they really started noticing, wow, like she's not just like hitting things. And then got a drum set and pretty much when I was 6 and then pretty much took off from there. And I have been doing music pretty much most of my life, but getting connected in Altira it was so cool because Dawn like slid into my DMs and pretty much found me on Instagram. And she was looking, to build like a female represented band, and it was just really cool. I was like fresh to moving to Nashville, Tennessee, and so I guess my post worked about that, and then she Yeah, we met up, had a great vibe and everything, and pretty much already told me like a lot of plans that were already to come with Altira and stuff. And I'm so, so blessed that this all worked out. And it's just been an absolutely incredible experience. And I'm just so honored to get to represent and be one of the faces of Altira.
Oh yeah, I can see that. You obviously you're saying that, and you're not just saying it because you're representing a band, but there's clearly a really good what's the word I'm looking for here? A rapport between the three of
Yeah.
you. And we talked about that, actually. You mentioned that on Monday last week. No, this week I should say. You mentioned how there's that connection which somehow despite the divide of never having met, it works. And I think there's something really awesome about that. So you've obviously been doing music for like ever since you were a child. Something you've developed, something you've obviously just developed a passion for. And when Dawn came along, gave you the opportunity to do it, I guess, in a more professional environment. So like proper band, really. Is it the first band you've been a part of, or you've been involved in other projects in the past?
I have been part of other projects. This is probably the first of this serious nature that I've been in since being in Nashville. So the fact that this opportunity arose as quickly as it did once I moved to town was just, I mean, like all of this, the connection between all three of us, the ability to get to do what we're all doing, it's truly come from God. I mean, there's just no way that this hasn't been just a blessing. And yeah, so I mean, it really has been just so incredible getting to work with all of them. And it's so, I don't know, it's so pure. It just feels like such a good connection. So I'm so honored.
I like that word. I like pure, partly because that's pure 247.
Oh, yes.
It's our word for everything. Pure this, pure that. We often joke about wanting to do things, and we'll say we'll have pure printing, we'll have pure restaurants, we'll have pure this. It's a good word, and it kind of captures a lot of our own heart. So I love that pure connection there. So brilliant. So that's how you sort of came to be involved. How about you, Ash? How did your musical journey start?
Yeah, so my first instrument was actually the flute. I was in marching band in like junior high and high school, and then I just saw somebody playing the electric guitar one day somewhere, and I was like, I have to learn how to play that. I was like completely mesmerized. And so my parents bought me an electric guitar for Christmas, and I picked it up and I was like, this is way too hard. And I let it sit under my bed for like 3 years. And then my mom was showing me some 80s music videos one day, and it was Guns N' Roses, and I saw Slash playing Welcome to the Jungle, and I was like, I have to learn how to do that. I'm gonna actually get serious about this. So that's when that started. So I've been playing guitar since 2016. I went to college for guitar, and here I am in Altira and truly living in an answered prayer and a dream come true, because I have been a Fireflight fan. So it's amazing to be able to work with Dawn and Gina, like Gina was saying. I love them both so much. Like we get along so well. The chemistry is there, and very blessed.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, it does seem like sometimes, you get to know people that becomes, you get to know them as colleagues, you work with them, and that's the full extent. Sometimes you get a bit closer, yeah, friends, you share some information, but then sometimes you get a bit deeper and it's more like almost like family. And it does seem almost like that with you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So again, it seems like with all three of you, there is quite a long journey. It's not like you just overnight became a good guitarist. You had to work at it. And in fact, for 3 years at one point, you didn't even really feel the motivation to try. And I can totally understand that, because, it's hard learning any kind of new skill. But obviously you've got to the point where you're very, very good now, and you're part of Altira and able to really enjoy that. But interesting that you were inspired by Guns N' Roses, and seeing other people perform. Oftentimes that's the way, isn't it? We see other people, we think, wow, I wish I could do that. And there's a real healthy, wholesome thing about that. Not jealousy, not envy, not anything like that. Just thinking, wow, that's awesome. I'd love to do something like that person. You're inspired by them, I suppose. So that's really, really cool. So each of you kind of alluded to this as well. You mentioned how it was more than just a coincidence that you met together. We often have this word, God incidents, and how God has brought it together. Yeah, it's something Andy B actually uses quite a lot. God incidents, it's something that you couldn't have orchestrated by yourself. It's more than just pure luck or chance. It's like that couldn't have happened that way. and obviously there's something deeper. And so, so for you, Dawn, like how did it first start? The idea of launching Altira. I mean, is it something that came off the back of Fireflight? Was it just out of the blue? How did that begin?
Well, it's like you said, exactly. God incidences. For me, the journey with the music we're releasing right now has been a long journey. And it was a couple of years ago that I have a mentor of mine who's also a benefactor. And he, Fireflight had been retired for a couple of years, and he came to visit my family with his family, and we were hanging out, and he was like, Dawn, I know the rest of the band is just ready to be retired, but like, have you ever considered making more music? He's like, I feel like it's possible that God still has something for you to say. And I was like, I love making music. I love it. Yes, I would like to do that. And so we started praying about the project. And even then, just getting it started took forever because we knew what producer we wanted to work with. And he wasn't available for like half a year. Like so many things kind of slowed everything down for a long time. And I was going through a lot of, like in the middle of the project, I started going through so much personal upheaval in my personal life. It was like, and we used to joke in Fireflight that just beware the riding year, because that is the year where the bottom falls out. And we would always say, because God brings things out of adversity, so much. And our music is kind of like that. It's definitely talks about adversity. And so lo and behold. So it just really felt like everything was trying to stop the project. And then even as the music was coming together, then I started working, like trying to figure out, well, how will we get this released? At the time, I never considered touring again. I just thought, well, we'll release this music and pray that God uses it in people's lives, and it's been such an insane time, I think, on earth since 2020, that everything is crazy all the time, it seems like. So after delay after delay after delay after delay, and everything changing in my life completely, suddenly I found myself in new arenas, and God started opening doors. And before I knew it, I'd met, my music manager, and she helped me get the ball rolling to figure out and help me get with our digital distribution company. And then we were talking with a booking agent, and we were having these talks, and someone brought up, they said, Dawn, have you considered, this music is big music, I mean, I think you could start a whole new band and launch some music through the band so that it's completely full of life, and I was like, I never thought about starting my own band. I wasn't the founder of Fireflight. I like to help,
Yeah.
So that wasn't in my wheelhouse, but I prayed about it, and I thought I would love that, because I would much rather be a part of a band than just be a solo artist and be like, oh, this is Dawn Michele. So I just started kind of thinking about it, and like almost immediately in my spirit, it just felt so right. And so I and through this, toward the end of this process, I'd already been thinking about, I've been feeling like God was telling me that actually I needed to go back out and start sharing again. And that was a big change. And I didn't know what to think about that, but I just felt like, well, I mean, I've got 2 small children, and I thought, maybe I could go for a long weekend. Maybe we could just do some festivals, something like that, and I'd already started brainstorming musicians that I might want to take with me on those trips. And I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if I could get more female representation in rock music, Christian rock music, especially. And so when I was thinking about that, I remembered hearing from a female lead guitarist a couple years before. And I was like, what was her name? And I started scrolling through all my messages, because I would see her once in a blue moon on my feed. But the algorithm is like, you can't even see your family on the algorithm. Yeah. They keep them from you, right? So, but then finally, like after scrolling through 3 years of direct messages, I found her, and I was like, it's Ash. And Ash had reached out to me 2 years before, and she, as a young upcoming woman in the music industry, as a guitar player, as a Christian, she just reached out saying, hi, do you have any advice for someone who's coming up in the music industry? She said that she had been listening to Fireflight. And so I was like, I wonder if she's still playing. And so sure enough, I went to her, and I could tell that she was active. So I was like, hey, it's good to talk to you again. I was just wondering, like, how's it going? Are you touring? What are you up to? I thought somebody snatched her up. I don't know. Maybe she's playing for Lady Gaga now. I don't know. But she was free. And so we met up for coffee, and just like with Gina, like we just really hit it off, and I could really tell, that her heart was pure and that she had a strong desire to, and she had been praying that God would open up an opportunity for her to work in Christian rock music. And it was a God incident, So I got Ash, and then I started thinking, what if I could get a female drummer? And so I looked around with people I knew, and those were dead ends. And I, like she said, I went on Instagram and I said, Nashville female drummer hashtag, and there's like a little handful that popped up, and Gina was there, and the first thing I clicked on, it was her telling her story about how she just moved to Nashville. She felt like God was telling her she needed to move to Nashville to keep furthering her career for the next steps in her career. So I just reached out to her, slid into her DMs, I just said, and I said, hey, I'm building a band. Like, do you want to meet for coffee? And we met for coffee. Same place, same chair, same table as I met with Ash, and and same results. So awesome. And in this process, I got reached out to by 7 Day Slumber, and they said, hey, Dawn, do you want to do, a couple week run with us? You want to go on tour? And I was like, oh no, I don't. How long? Like, just 2 weeks. I was like, maybe I could do 2 weeks, that's not that long to be gone, and I was like, well, when are you going to do it? They're like, we're going to do it in March. And I was like, oh, that's when our first single comes out. Yeah, I guess I'd be an idiot not to do that, right? That's obviously what God wants me to do. And so the next thing I knew, we had a tour. And so literally, coincidence after coincidence, and all just God opening the doors. And when God does that, it's such a blessing, because if you're like me, you're like, I don't know what to do. What's right? What's wrong? Is this a big mistake? Is this a good idea? When God just like opens the doors, you're like, this is easy. I can see that God's doing something. So I'm just going to keep following him and just trust, that what he's doing. And he has been so gracious to us. And here we're building from nothing here. I have my Fireflight bands, but Fireflight's been retired for several years, and so Fireflight hasn't been posting, so nobody sees Fireflight's posts because of the algorithm. So, and here we are starting a whole new band with no fan base and trying to get people to know who we are. It's really hard to get the word out. So but here we are. I think it's our 9th week, #1 with our first single on the Christian rock charts. I can't believe it. Wow. And God is just doing big things. And so I think we're all just along for the ride. And I've had to like all those things I said I was never going to do again. I was like, okay, God, just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And that's where I am. And just having faith that there's lots of things that are working out great. Some things that aren't working out at all, I don't know, but I'm just trusting in God.
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. I think I see a lot in there that we have experienced ourselves, in that when you start trying to do what you feel God wants you to do, it can get really hard. And it's oftentimes the most important things are the hardest to do. And oftentimes that's confirmation that you're on the right lines. It's getting really hard. I must be doing something good here, because why else would there be so many weird things that should never happen at the same time?
Could be.
Exactly. And oftentimes, that is the case. But again, when you're following God, there's a kind of like, it's really hard, but it's also really easy, because it's hard on the one hand because it means you're going to have to change who you are. If you're following God, he's going to call you out of your comfort zone. He's going to call you into places you think, I don't think I'm ready for that. I'm not sure I can do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I don't have the skills, all those same things. But it's also really easy, because all of a sudden, when you're following God, he opens the doors for you, and you don't have to push the doors open. We can try and do that, and we may succeed, but that's probably not the right place to go. It's better to just wait until God opens the doors. If it waits, or maybe he's asking you to push a little bit, but either way, again, there's a kind of hard part and there's an easy part, because it's always best ultimately to do what God's asking you to do. He's always right, isn't he?
My father always said, good things come to those who wait, as long as he who waits works like heck while he's waiting.
Yeah, it's like an active waiting, isn't it, rather than a passive waiting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I love that. It's an amazing story. And like you say, I think when it's born out of working hard, it's always better. You mentioned that with Fireflight, it was hard work at first, and I could say, and you say it was hard work whenever writing. There's certain parts it's always hard, and usually that is a good sign because, I mean, forgive the cliche, but nothing that's worth anything comes easy. You know, if it's worth
Right.
something,
Easy come, easy go.
exactly, exactly, yeah. So it perfectly sums it up. Easy come, easy go. If it's easy coming, there's a good chance that it's maybe not quite the same quality or value or substance. So yeah,
Yeah.
amazing part of the story there for Altira. So how about for you, Gina? In terms of the kind of the journey, in terms more of your faith, how God influenced that. I mean, you mentioned how it was just amazing that you arrived in Nashville and all of a sudden along comes Dawn. That timing is amazing. So how about you? How did you feel in terms of how God influenced that whole kind of beginning with drums and then eventually joining Altira?
Oh, I love this question. This is one of my favorite stories to tell.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I mean, I would not have done anything without my ability to trust God, truly. Like I said, music has been a part of my life for pretty much all of my life. And it's like all I've ever done. And I've done a lot of the secular music. I mean, back in Texas, I was doing country, metal, funk, R&B. Like I was playing everything all the time. But I've also been very heavily influenced or like involved in my church. I've always been on the worship team ever since I was 7. I've literally like never missed like any Sundays, always just at church, rehearsals, doing young adult groups, and even when I was still a kid doing all of my like youth groups and stuff like that. And I ended up having so many doors opened by God and just through music in different ways and getting to travel with like playing at different churches and stuff. And eventually, I was so content and just happy doing what I was doing back home. And there was a season that lasted about a full year, I would say, in 2024, that it almost felt like the domino effect of just negativity, to be honest. Like it felt like a lot of bad was just stacking on top of each other. And there was a moment where I was just like crying out, like, why, God, what is going on? And I later learned that I had a very big lesson from him about trusting God's timing and not trying to be in control of things. And it was a very, I mean, one of the most eye-opening moments, because he really truly he sat me down and he humbled me, and he basically had to break me down to build me back up. And my faith has been stronger than ever since then. I decided, I had a lot of things going, and then once I really just like, I hands up, I was like, you know what, this is my time. I need to fully let go and let God. And he truly started guiding me in the right directions again, and opening bigger doors and kind of nudging me towards directions that I didn't consider, like moving and everything. And I just felt so strongly that like my community back home was really encouraging me and like building me to get to the next steps too. So I rededicated, got rebaptized, did all of these things, and I just continued to trust God like every single day. Like, what is this going to look like? And so, yeah, eventually it led to, I guess, just so many doors. And then since moving here, like yesterday, I literally celebrated 1 year of being in Nashville. And I was just looking back and I'm like, it hasn't been like super easy because it's expensive out here. And I just came randomly. There's a lot of like ups and downs, but I look back and I was like, there is so much that has been done in such a short amount of time. And I didn't do any of that. That was 100% by the grace of God. just placing me in front of the right people at the right time and everything. So this whole journey, I mean, from start to finish, this is completely just me trusting Jesus and my faith through everything. Because I couldn't do any of this without trusting God. So
Well, yeah, I love that. Like you say, oftentimes we do need to trust God's timing, and it can be
Yeah.
really hard. But again, it's that reminder that although trusting in God is not always easy, the doors that He can open are so much greater than we could ever imagine. I mean, we push by our own strength, we might get ourselves so far, and it could work, but when God opens the doors, all of a sudden, whole new worlds of opportunity are opened up, whole new just ways of living can open up. And in your case, it requires a bit of humbling along the way.
Yeah.
God doesn't just call us on an easy journey so we can, cruise along for the rest of our lives. That's not what it's like. That's just not how it works. God doesn't want to leave us in where we are right now. He wants to take us to a next level. Always, always the next level. Always, always becoming more like Him. So I love that story of how God's obviously opened the doors for you, and by trusting in His timing, He's brought you to this incredible place where you're just loving being part of the music, loving where you are now. I can imagine it was a bit scary, perhaps at first, maybe to Nashville for the first time, like you say, all these new things you have to consider and new expenses to take into account. But God's obviously carried you and brought you to this place, so that's just awesome.
thank you.
Yeah. How about for you, Ash? Then, how's it all started? How did God lead you on your musical journey and ultimately into Altira?
Yeah, honestly, waiting has been the hardest part. Nobody likes to wait. I've had this desire in my heart to be in a touring Christian rock band for a long time. So I would just pray and pray and pray. Honestly, growing weary, I totally was, but He strengthened me during that time. And now looking back, I see God's hand in all of this. He was preparing me for this opportunity through, my schooling, just working, like you said, being active in the waiting and not just sitting there and just thinking something's going to come to you while you're doing nothing. But so that is the lesson I had to learn to trust in God's timing. But I totally see why I had to wait. And honestly, Fireflight's song, For Those Who Wait, ministered to me a lot during my waiting periods, and it still does. So it's amazing to see that, that song that ministered to me, now I'm playing that song on stage. Crazy.
Oh, that is awesome. I love that. How, the influence of someone else has obviously led to you to being able to do something similar for other people in a whole new arena, a whole new, time period. It's awesome. So obviously, as you say, there's still that lesson to be learned, and that waiting. It's hard. It's hard, but again, for those who wait, we there's that scripture verse which talks about not giving up because we reap the reward eventually. It's generally speaking, the greater the reward, the greater the risk, the greater the time, the greater the patience, and all the rest of it. It's coming out a lot in this conversation, which I like. Oftentimes in these conversations, you hear that theme, and there is a theme of that kind of waiting and persevering, and how that is worth it, even if it is hard at the time. So we've heard a bit about how you all came together in Altira. I love the way that you actually met them both at the same coffee spot, Dawn, and you got to chat with them. And again, same result. They've joined the band, and it's going really, really well. Again, you've got off an EP out already, which is cool. And interesting that you mentioned the touring. Just coming back to that one, you mentioned that you kind of thought, well, touring's a bit much. Let's just go for a slightly less intense version for this band. But then you kind of felt like you needed to tour, and why was that? Why did you feel you needed to tour?
Well, it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, how it's been a really tumultuous time since 2020 on Earth.
Yeah.
Most of my interviews are with people in the United States of America, so I'm like here in the U.S., but actually everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I think that all of the absolute craziness has really pushed people to the brink. I think in a lot of ways, I feel like we're seeing the worst aspects of humanity left and right. And I know for me, I just found myself kind of like feeling angry all the time. every time I would turn on the television, I'd be disappointed, you know? uh, I joke that like, but I'm looking at people's bumper stickers. I'm disappointed. Like I just felt so frustrated by the behaviors that I was seeing, especially from people who were supposed to be known by their love, by God's love. And I was just really frustrated. And I felt like it was like a real crisis for me, not in my faith in God and in Jesus, but in my faith in the people who were that were the most like outspoken and proclaiming, you know, supposed to be, you know, leaders. Um and the trickle down effect that that had to everyone that I could see around me. And so I just spent a lot of time super angry. And I found myself in prayer, you know, feeling like when I felt like God was telling me that it was time to start traveling again and do more than just, you know, release the music online. I felt like he was telling me, you know, I think you've been angry long enough. I think it's time to try to do something about it. And it felt so impossible to do anything about it. Because it's such it's like a problem on a global scale. And but I felt like God spoke to me and said, you know what? They're all just afraid. They're really just afraid. And that's where all this is coming from. And I thought about it and I thought, you know, with the pandemic, there was a time for all of us, shorter for some, longer for others, depending on where you lived, where, you know, the future of humanity really came into question, like for the first time in a way that it never happened, you know, since I've been alive, since most of us have been alive. You know, we haven't had like a plague and things like that, you know, in quite some time. And that's a huge, so suddenly everyone has lost this confidence, you know, has this new fear that they've never had before. And everyone, as we lost that feeling of certainty in such a profound way, everyone's been grieving that and just reaching for control, trying to feel back in control. And grieving, as I've learned through my years of therapy, you know, presents itself in a lot of ways, which, you know, there's anger, bargaining, you know, denial, and I've seen it all every which way. And in myself too. And so I just felt like what we really need is we need to take our lives back, control of our lives back from fear, because we're supposed to be known by our love, not by our fear. And if fear's in the driving seat, you know, God's not given us a spirit of fear. So if God didn't give us that spirit, and it's the one that's in control, we're definitely not going where God wants us to go, because God's given us a spirit of power and of love and self-control. And we are to be known, you know, the way that they'll know us that we are Christians is by our love. Yeah. So if we are unable to love people anymore, you know, because we are so entrenched in our fear and pulled into it, fighting for control, we're just not fulfilling God's purposes. And I wager that is why we are in such a big mess right now, and why we've seen more contention, you know, brother against brother, more disagreements and than ever before, more evil coming to light and there being no reckoning. It's a big problem. So I don't know how to fix that. I really don't. But I do know that God has power. And so what we do is we put our own struggles, and we try to write music authentically and speak to what we see happening around us and in our own hearts, and call out to God. And then we go out and we play the music and we pray with people, and we pray that God would lift the mantle of fear off of us, all of his children, so that we can be the hands and feet of Jesus on the earth, that we can walk in love, and that we can stand up against the forces of evil that are really, I mean, running our world, as we know now more than we ever have before, as the veil is being lifted, you know? And so that's big. And it takes God, I think, to do it. So we don't think that we can really make any impact in of ourselves, but we're believing that God can impact people. And so that's what we're doing. We're going out and we're trying to be, you know, get out there, boots on the ground.
Yeah, I like that. Boots on the ground. We often talk about the front line of, well, ultimately good versus bad and light versus darkness. It's an ongoing battle. It's an ongoing struggle. It's been around since, well, very near the beginning of humanity. And I see what you mean there about fear. It's very, very true. And there are a lot of people that have, I think, you mentioned early on being very disappointed. And I think I've seen that a lot, disappointed in a lot of people who should be doing a much better job of fighting against injustice, of fighting against fear, of bringing truth into the world. And again, that anger, there is such a thing as a righteous anger. I mean, when Jesus got angry, he flipped over the tables. He was livid, and he was absolutely justified in that. And I think sometimes as we get to know God better, as we get closer to Him, we get angered by the things that anger Him. And that can
Yeah,
lead us one of
that's
two ways.
wild.
We can get angry, we can get bitter, or we can do something about it. And that's what Jesus
Yeah.
did. He did something about it, didn't he? He cleaned out the temple, and he made a big difference. He challenged them. And a lot of us, we can hide in fear, or we can do something about it. And I love that you are saying how touring, well, it takes a lot more work. But like you say, it's boots on the ground. It's getting out there in a way that you can't without touring. And yeah, I think we see that a lot. People will choose the kind of the slightly safer method, but it's not quite as effective in getting out there, getting the message out there. So I love that. How about for you, Gina? What's your sort of heart behind the music? How do you feel that it helps to fight fear for you? I mean, what's your heart and passion in fighting fear? Is it I guess similar to Dawn in that desire to fight fear, or is there sort of a different heart?
I mean, it's just been so interesting to see a lot, like what she was saying, of the things that have been coming to light.
Yeah,
I feel like I was, growing up, I'm not like super aware of anything. And then when you hit adulthood, it's like, wow, there is just the real world is awful. When you don't have Jesus, it's awful.
yeah,
And I think as far as like, I mean, the music, Dawn's lyrics as like are like she always says that Death of Fear, the song it is a battle song, and it's so it's super impactful. All of these words are so impactful. Even having people like write into the band and like DM us, and they're like these songs are truly, stirring something in me that I haven't thought about in either a long time or ever. And I think I mean, these lyrics are seriously just so important for I think just making people aware that it's like you don't have to fight your own battle. You could be part of something bigger. And I feel that in my core every time I get to play these, and like just seeing the reaction and just like emotional connection when we're on stage, and the people in the audience are now that the songs are out and they're singing these songs like passionately. And I'm also like trying to match that energy, and I'm playing these songs because I firmly believe in the message behind them. And I just think it's like one step at a time. It's crazy to see how this is already yeah, bringing light and like building getting everyone closer to a better agenda. And just it always just takes one person, and it's a chain of people to spark the fire of good back into the earth and everything. But just keeping the Lord close to everyone's hearts, and guiding people who've maybe never have experienced the love of Jesus before. And a lot of the fans and stuff, it's like they can also relate, because it's like the music is it is powerful. It's so powerful lyrically, and just the emotion that the actual music gives off and everything. I love getting to represent, and like I said, just getting to play it, and I feel it in my core. So it's been really, really cool just to see that energy exchange between the band and the audience, and just fans who are really enjoying the message.
yeah. Which is something you can't really experience without touring, is it? I mean, so it's one of those things.
It's different. Yeah, it's really different, but it is amazing too. Like the energy exchange, of course, in a live setting is incredible, but kind of what I was saying about the people who are like, I get personal DMs from people, or I know that we've all received some kind of message from people who I get updated maybe almost every day by some people, and they're just like, I've had these songs on repeat, and I went through X, Y, and Z, and these are really just, they're helping me. And that's like, that's amazing to think that there's an impact even through the phone, through the screen, like when we're not there in person, but they know that there's a connection there. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that is wonderful. It's one thing that we love about being able to go on site for radio or anything like that, because being able to meet people who've sort of enjoyed something you created, it's something else. It really is. So yeah, I love that. How about for you, Ash? What is your sort of heart in this music? What is it you just sort of, what is the heart and passion behind the music? I mean, Gina's just explained there how there's a particular effect it has on people. And so for you, what's your heart in playing that? Obviously for you it's guitar. What's your heart behind that?
Yeah, so the goal is to definitely fight off fear with faith head on, and to let people know they're not alone, and that their chains that are enslaving them to fear can be broken by Jesus's name. And so really go out and be a light in the dark and spread the message of hope.
Mm. Yeah, very true. I mean, it's one of those things. When it comes to telling people about the truth, you can either bash them over the head with it, or you can just, tell the truth. And that's what you're doing, isn't it? Bringing that light, which doesn't require any particular pushing it on people. You're just saying, here it is. Let's illuminate the subject, which is what you're talking about, bringing the light, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome. Well, it's such a great to be able to chat with you all, and love hearing these stories. Just for each of you, could I ask, so where did your faith journey begin? So starting with you, Dawn, when did you first sort of choose to follow God? Because obviously it's a big part of what you do now, making the music. It is all about following God, but where did that first start for you?
Yeah, I didn't grow up in the church. My family, my dad kind of was drugged to church his whole life, and he resented that. He didn't have a good taste in his mouth, and he was always drugged to fire and brimstone preachers and all that kind of stuff, and then he saw people in his life who only went on Christmas or only went on Easter and that kind of stuff, and he was like, I'm not interested in that either. So we weren't active in the church when I was a child, and though I had relatives that were. And when I think it was about when I was a freshman in high school, my family decided to uproot and move to a new town about an hour away, but we couldn't afford to move to a new house yet, but the jobs were there. So for about a year, me and my father would get up at about 5 a.m. and throw my brother and my sister in the car, who are a lot younger than me. I was like a living nanny, and we would go in the car. We would drive for an hour in the dark, and I'd get dropped off at my school, and the kids would get dropped off at daycare. And then after school, I would wait, and then I would sit there in the morning and wait for the doors to open because they weren't open yet. And then at night, my dad's work friend would come take me to the library, and I'd sit at the library or walk around our little downtown until my dad got off work. And then we'd go pick up the kids and drive an hour back home. And we did that for a whole school year. And it was a very lonely time in my life because where we lived was actually way out in the country, in the swamp, actually. And before, I'd at least gone to like an elementary school relatively close, but now I was going to school in a whole another town an hour away. So all the friends that I had, I didn't go to school with anymore. And all the friends I went to school with, I lived too far away to ever hang out with them. And I had decided that I did believe in God. And I thought, I believe in God. And if there's not a God, I don't think there's any loss for me believing in him. And so I prayed to God and I said, God, if you will get me moved, I can move into a house, like in a neighborhood where there are other people and I can hang out with friends and I can have friends. I'll go to church. And that was about halfway through the year, and we still took the rest of that school year in the summer, and then finally we did move. And then like it was like the first week of school, a guy came up to me and said, "Hey Dawn, you want to come to my youth group with me?" And I was like, "No thanks." And then I was like, wait a minute. I had said that I would go to church if God let me move. And so I went to that youth group with him. It was a Sunday night service, and there was the small groups. So I got to go and be in a small group with other girls from my school, with the moms and all that stuff, and go through a book and everything. And they were very loving to me. So I went to a youth group on Wednesday, and my whole life I moved around a lot, and I had a lot of trauma growing up, and I always kind of felt like an outsider. And so when I went to the youth group, I was just welcome with open arms, and it felt like a place to belong. And so I started going there religiously, and I learned about Jesus. And the more that I learned about Jesus, the more that I wanted to be like him. And so I became just dedicated my life to Christ. And then it's been a whole journey. I threw myself into legalism because I'm a big people pleaser, and gotten all wrapped up and went down so many wrong paths about that kind of thing. But thankfully, like, in my legalism and my zealousness of trying to do everything 1,000,000% right, I really, 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 really searched for God, and I found him. So though it's been quite a journey of coming to understand more and more of the truth, and understand how much I don't have all the answers, I have come to know the real living God, and am so thankful because he saved my life again and again, and slowly brought me out all of my dead ends, and not let me continue forever in my follies. And here I am now, just trying to live authentically and share the message of his love with the world.
Wow, that's quite a powerful story, but I'm glad you got there in the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how about for you, Gina? Where did your faith story start?
Yeah, kind of, I mean, let me think. My parents also, they were kind of, drugged to church also. So when I was younger, my grandma would take me to church with her. This was when I was very young. I don't even really remember very much. But eventually, that same church, once I was in the first grade. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in school we have like PE, or physical education classes. And my PE coach in the first grade, when I was 7, I guess my dad was talking to him about like, yeah, she like got a drum set and she's been like doing really good. And they were like, oh, why don't you just bring her out to one of our rehearsals? And he was the like worship pastor at the church. And they were like, we'll let her sit in for a couple of songs. And so obviously my parents had to drive me to that. And I sat in, like, heard the last song that they played just that one time, and then played it back with the team right then and there. And they were like, we need to figure out how to get her involved on our worship team. And so from that moment, just from these little connections, then I ended up getting to serve and play every single Sunday. And there was a rule where you had to be at least like 15 to like to be able to get on the team. So then because of my exception, somebody had to drive me to church and these rehearsals. So it was kind of like a plug from God that my parents had to start taking me to church. So that slowly got them plugged back into going to service. And then the whole family started going to church. And that's what really, like, I guess from then, just being, surrounded by the church family and the community all the time, like, it started building my faith. So then I grew up, getting to serve and play. And I was able to go serve and play at another church where they had their drummer had unfortunately just passed away. And my dad was talking to the pastor there. They were like, they were friends. And he was talking about how I was, playing every Sunday. And they were like, oh, man, we could really use a drummer. And so then I got involved over there, and that just opened other doors and helped me also just show enough, like, I was just growing up with it. So it like expanded my faith even more. So just truly growing up in it. And it's just crazy, all the little like stepping stones that God will use to just expand it and get my family back involved. And but then we all got baptized together, and when I was really young, and it's just been crazy, this faith journey, and I've never let it go. I mean, there's of course, as you grow, things waver and shift, but I've never let Jesus go for sure. And it's just gotten stronger and stronger. So this has been great.
Yeah. Well, a big part of any faith journey, any journey, is that wavering and that shifting, which might seem a bit scary. It might feel like, am I going to hold on through this? But that makes you stronger for it. And as you say, that constant leveling up, getting stronger and stronger. So that's amazing. I love how it's kind of through music that your faith has grown. It's kind of fascinating. We often think, well, it should be about all these spiritual stuff and music is, separate. But no. God cares about every part of us, including our love for music or reading or whatever it might be. So that's just fantastic. And last but certainly not least, how about you, Ash? Where did your faith journey begin?
Yeah, so I've actually grown up in church like my whole life. My dad is a pastor. He's been preaching since he was like 14 years old. So I just remember giving my life to Jesus at Vacation Bible School when I was probably like 8 years old. And that's just been my life. I'm grateful to have grown up in a Christian home and still very involved with the church. I'm a worship leader at my church. So I love that so much of my life is music and God related. Very blessed.
Yeah, that is wonderful, and it's great when I guess anybody, any Christian, if you're following God and everything you do, it ought really to be for Him. But in your case, it comes naturally, and I love that. For me, I have a very similar experience. Born and raised in church, so I'm very familiar with it. But even so, there is still a kind of, you still need to choose for yourself whether you're going to put your faith into what you do, or whether you're going to keep God separate or not. But in your case, you've kept Him, close. You've kept moving toward Him, and through music, you've been able to obviously grow in your faith. That is amazing. So, with each of you, it's been such a pleasure to chat today. We better wrap it up. And we've got a song from Altira. We've got Here I Am to close up this interview. Thank you to each of you for joining us. Thank you to Dawn, Michele, Ash, Blair, and Gina for joining us on the show today. It's been an absolute privilege.
Thanks so much for having us,
so much
for what you do, playing music.
Thank you so much. I hope everything goes well. I look forward to seeing as Altira continues to grow, tour, release new music. I shall be on the edge of my seat waiting for the next stuff to come out. Right now, jump into this song, another song from your EP, Death of Fear, Here I Am.
Here at Pure 247 Radio, we've had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with some amazing stories.
I was about 5k off the coast paddling, and I was watching this storm on the land, and it literally hit a mountain. Rather than just going over the top of it, just turned and just came straight at me. You can't stay on the board in that instance, so I literally am jumping off the back of the board. I've got everything tethered down on the board. I'm just holding on to the back of the board.
As I walked in, there was a fight going on the floor. There was a police sergeant sailing over the desk to help with restraining somebody. And the doors were clanging shut, all the big metal gates, and there were alarms going off and radios. And I felt this most enormous peace come over me, because I realised that this is where God wanted me to spend my career, behind bars.
It was like a baptism of fire, and it was like the most socially deprived council wards in Britain. And then we were going into schools, and then kids were coming to the gigs, but then knocking on my door at night, and I was out there playing football till 11:30 p.m. at night, 12 o'clock, feeding kids, running youth clubs.
If you've missed an inspiring conversation and want to catch up, or you'd like to revisit a brilliant interview, you can. Our interviews are available on YouTube and podcast, so you can always catch up anytime you like. Search for Pure 247 Radio wherever you get your podcasts, or find our YouTube channel at Pure 247 Radio, or head over to www.pure247radio.org/catch up.